We are live. I'm your host, Go Rome, host of the Rome Show podcast. Today I got a special guest, Adam Giardino. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. This is we're creeping towards the start of fall sports and weather's great up here in the Northeast, so let's do this.
And once again, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Cool. There we go. Love that.
So you have a nice resume. UConn Huskies broadcaster, Big East basketball play-by-play announcer, Olympics broadcaster on Peacock, and founder, director of the Black PxP, if I said that correct.
Yes, Black Play-by-Play Fund, so to save us all the letters, Black PxP Fund, absolutely.
A lot of stuff. You must be super busy.
I am super busy. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. This is actually a quieter time of year with what relates to the Black Play-by-Play Fund. Next week we head down to NABJ, which is the National Association of Black Journalists conference, which this year's in Atlanta. So we're in year 6, almost year 7 of that nonprofit, and giving out over $40,000 in scholarships. So that's kind of the focus right now. And like I said, college soccer just a couple of weeks away, college football right behind that. So we're getting into the thick of all the fun stuff.
Extremely busy. Extremely busy.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So, Adam, take us back to the beginning. What first sparked your passion for sports broadcasting?
I I think it's pretty similar to what a lot of us go through, where we're just not quite good enough athletes, but we love sports and we love being around it. And in terms of being at a live event, that to me simulates the adrenaline, the excitement. I've worked in studio and done all those things and reported from outside of stadiums, but to be in it, to be live, to be calling the game, doing the play-by-play, that to me, there's no bigger rush. And so I was lucky that junior year of high school, which would have been 2005 at this point, a couple of social studies teachers who are also coaches at my high school said, hey, we're already filming our games, to watch back the tape for our athletes. So you may as well plug a microphone in and do it. And so that was what I ended up doing and fell in love with it. Went to UConn, did that for 4 years, and a winding road through minor league baseball. And here we are.
Nice. So, how, like, when you did the first play by play announcement, was you nervous? Your adrenaline, like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're nervous, but you also, I mean, hopefully, if you're doing play by play for the first time, anything for the first time, you do it in a bit of anonymity. So, there really wasn't much of an audience outside of my parents and, a couple other people. So, yeah, you're excited. And I also say, though, that play by play is, you're not going to be good at it right away. Nobody is. Um, but I think you're going to know if you want to do it right away, because there is that, you're locked in for 2 to 3 hours. You can't run away. Whatever happens is live. And it's just this excitement that even if it's not going well, which when you're first just starting out, it's not going well. That's the fact. There's still this competitive juice that's flowing of, okay, I gotta find my way out of this, because it's the first inning and we got 8.5 innings left, or this is my first hockey game that I ever did. I was floundering and I think it was 3-0, 2 minutes in, and it was like, okay, I got 58 minutes of this thing, this game is over, and yet I've got to carry this for another couple of hours here, 58 minutes of game action. So yeah, it's on you. And I think early on you just sort of know, okay, this is the excitement that I'm looking for.
good one. And hockey, basketball, soccer, football, you do it all.
Do it all. And that actually doesn't even, you mentioned the Olympics, which is awesome, because I think one of the thrills of the Olympics, part of what makes it so great, it's these sports that nobody really cares about for 4 years at a time, and then for 3 weeks it's all we care about as a sport community, and it's awesome. And so honestly, for me, getting on the radar at NBC and just being part of it, the Olympics, that is my experience, my time at Harvard. And I'm still doing games there. So I'd say, 75% of what I do is UConn TV and radio. There's another chunk that's NBC Peacock. There's another chunk that's Harvard and Northeastern University. So that's the bulk of where I do my work right now. And the beauty of Harvard is that, you wake up at 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning because you got to go call some rowing on the Charles River, or I got to do the sailing national championships, the fencing Ivy League championships, track and field, swim and dive, all of these sports that I think the casual fan would, not turn their TV on to watch, but the fans that watch these sports care deeply about it. And it's that, to me, is sports at its finest when we're, arguing and quibbling about the Power Four in college football and what the future of all that looks like, and NIL and salary caps for college athletes. These really talented fencers in the Ivy League, some of whom will go on to compete at the Olympics, that's not anywhere on their radar. They're just going out there because they are the best at what they do. They're winning a conference title, and they want to position themselves to compete at the national level in the NCAAs. So that, to me, is as much as anything, when we talk about distilling down the pureness of sports and why we love it. Some of these smaller sports that I get to call, not to say that college basketball and college football isn't a thrill, because it is, and I love that, and put tens of thousands of people in an arena or at a stadium, and it's great. But sometimes these sports where these athletes are doing the same thing, they're waking up at 5 a.m, rowing on the river 5 days a week, and getting their lifts in, getting their runs in, and you get to call this one event that they, are sacrificing so much for.
Good one. And man, Adam, we got 7 days throughout the week. Do you have any time for yourself?
You can ask my wife that. So, I mean, yes, it's, she's incredibly patient. And it's funny because the last couple of years, I also took on a full-time master's program at UConn so I could teach as well. So I was taking 3 classes a semester. I was teaching a couple hundred students a semester in the comm department. So I'm actually lucky and thrilled that is behind me. So yeah, you can see I got 2 diplomas there up above my head there on that back wall. So check that off the to-do list, because yeah, it's a lot of it's nonstop. And for now, when people think about sports broadcasting, for me, it's pretty local still. So I do travel with UConn football. We get on, but we're lucky we have chartered flights. So we're traveling with the team. We fly, 5 or 6 times a year somewhere. This year, Southern Miss, Wyoming, Temple, Miami of Ohio. I'm missing the last of those travel games. But, it's an opportunity to go somewhere, Friday morning, you pack up, you go, you get on a plane, and Friday the game ends, you get a box dinner, and everybody's loaded on the plane, and you're flying home. So, it's not these protracted 3-4 day trips that I think a lot of people envision when you're traveling in college sports. That experience is different with Big East basketball. Just in terms of if you're going to do a game, my first assignment last year was Villanova Georgetown, and so I'm up in Massachusetts and flew down to Washington, D.C. on a Friday, and the game was, the next day at 7 p.m. And so it was a 3-day ordeal. And so it was a bit of a longer experience. So, I think when you look and you see guys like a Jason Benetti, who's doing, the Detroit Tigers plus Sunday Night Baseball, and then he goes right into college football, and he'll probably have college football time before baseball's even over with. And Mike Monaco, who's doing the same thing for ESPN, and he's got all this, Red Sox and college football and all this Wimbledon, NHL playoffs. Their travel schedules seem exhausting. And obviously it's a luxury to be in that position for both of those guys among countless others. But for me right now, I am lucky where I'm busy, but I'm still mostly central to home, at least for now. And so we'll see how that continues to grow over the next couple of years.
Right. And you're married. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
37. So yeah, met my wife when we were 31. So we've been married for a couple of years now, and a house and a 3-year-old golden doodle. So life is good.
Sounds good. I'm getting married soon.
Congratulations. Do you need any advice? What can I give you for advice?
With your schedule, the media,
Mm-hmm.
what's one thing that you can tell me and tell the audience who's getting married? There's many people getting married. What would you like live by?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate that um, my wife, she's not a sports fan per se, and I know a lot of broadcasters in the industry who will say the same thing, but she's just very passionate about seeing their partner happy. And so that is to me something that because again, I mentioned till I was 30, so I had relationships and all that through my 20s, but it's a tough go of things to travel and to be, that was when I was in minor league baseball. So I was really gone for almost 6 months a year. And being gone for 6 months a year made me realize, okay, maybe I want to prioritize other things. And so, yeah, you know, it's funny because I asked what advice can I give, and my advice is to find somebody who just cares about what you care about, even if it's not, even if my wife Meg was never watching sports before we met. Every once in a while, she'll turn a game on that I'm calling, and just that kind of support where, um, it's almost you hear about athletes talk about getting home at night, and the best thing their wife can do is not talk about the game, right? Like, just want to get home and disconnect. And there's never ESPN on our TV. It's always HGTV and Food Network. So get into some bad reality TV. Watch whatever your partner wants to watch. Let's put it that way. That's a good suggestion. When you guys are home alone, give over control of the remote and go from there.
That's a good one. That's important. Um, what was the defining moment that made you realize the career was meant for you to pursue it?
you know, I love that question. My mind is going to a couple of places. So that first game that I ever did was UConn versus Duke men's soccer as a student, and it was the second Saturday that I was on campus. I can remember the game, the opponent, and I mostly remember the walk back to my dorm after calling the game on student radio and just calling my parents who had listened. And again, they were probably two of the 6 listeners, right, over the course of multiple hours. And so calling them and just sort of saying, this is it. Like, this is what I really want to do. I just knew in that moment that this was what I wanted to pursue and to figure out. And again, like, knowing what I wanted to do, and yet maybe not having a great sense of how to approach it. So I'm really lucky that I went to UConn, which is obviously a big athletic school, but not a big broadcasting school. I'm still really the only graduate of UConn to ever pursue play-by-play in any real way, and not kind of deviate off into another avenue of sports media, which there's so many ways that you can go about this thing, especially with ESPN right in the backyard in Bristol, Connecticut. There's plenty of opportunities to work behind the scenes and find passion doing other things. And I was really committed to doing play-by-play. And so for me to be able to, just, I guess, dumb my way through it and just sort of wind up where I am, where when you look around the country and you've got a Syracuse and Northwestern and Missouri, all of these Arizona State, all of these blue blood broadcasting programs, Syracuse chief among them, there's so much structure there. And so I feel really fortunate that I could go from this freshman who said, wow, this was a really fun thing to do, and to just sort of in my own way figure it out. And I think that was something where when I did that first game, then I realized, oh, how can I be better the next game and the next game and the next game? And that really is a huge piece of advice that, like, when people ask me about getting into play-by-play specifically, I had a really, a great mentor who was on me during minor league baseball. And we had, at that time, minor league baseball right now, it's 6 games and then you get Monday off. But back then we were doing, 17, 21 or 24 games in a row without a day off. And we were riding buses and staying in bad motels. And so it was physical and mental as much as it was just simply, okay, I want to call a game tonight. I mean, you're trying to keep your body healthy. I was losing, 20 pounds over the course of a season just because of how bad the living can, all of that, all the horror stories you've heard about players. same goes for the broadcasters that are traveling as well. And so, you know, one of the biggest things that I had taken away was during that time as a minor league broadcaster, connected with a guy who ended up calling big league games, and he was basically saying to me, okay, well, when was the last time you listened to your tape? My answer was, well, and he had been the minor league route as well, so he knew. And I was like, yeah, we're in game 13 in a row, so we got a day off in a couple of days, and then I'm going to listen to a full game, 3 hours. And he goes, okay, pause. You called the game last night, right? I said, yeah. If you were to click in the middle of your broadcast anywhere and hit play, how long would it take for you to find something that you want to improve? 30 seconds, right? I think every broadcaster can relate to that. And so why are you talking to me about taking 3 hours to listen to yourself when all you need is 30 seconds every day? I thought, oh, okay. And that is something to me that still, and God willing, I think maybe I can go 45 seconds now without finding something that I absolutely hate, right? That's just self-critique and trying to find ways to get better. But I still don't go more than a minute before I find something where I go, oh, okay, tomorrow or tonight, whenever I'm calling my next game, like this is the thing I want to work on. And so I think that, for people that go to the gym, just even if you don't have an hour to go to the gym, doing 50 push-ups in your bedroom is better than not doing anything that day. So I think that is the mentality of just finding ways when you talk about, okay, when did you know and how did you get to where you are? That's the winding answer of, okay, I knew the first time I did it, which kind of dovetails on the initial one of my previous answers, but I really started to figure it out when I was given that piece of advice, because it was, oh, this is actually how you find ways to get better and start to move yourself in a direction that keeps you competitive in a really competitive industry.
Good one. That's a good one. Can you share a setback that helped you shape who you became today?
I'm lucky in that I've stagnated at different jobs, but I've never been fired. I've never been forced out of a job before I was truly ready to move on. And so 5 years in Double A with the Trenton Thunder, they were 5 awesome years. But I think when you're in the minors, you get the itch to say, okay, how can I move on? Um, for me, one of the biggest obstacles, and I don't think you would know this, I don't think most people would be able to know or tell from this, but I am legally disabled, so I am deaf, and so I still obviously have hearing. But for me, being able to navigate working with the production crew that is going to be in your ear during these NBC Peacock broadcasts, that was a big learning curve. I mean, I at all these other stops at UConn and Harvard and Northeastern, there's a producer in your ear, but it's just different. It's a different level. There's far more specificity of what is needed when you're managing that level of a broadcast. And so, yeah, back in December when I did my first NBC game, that was one where I came out of that broadcast not feeling great, largely because, well, the game was never really close. It was one of those basketball games where it was like 13 points and then the team cut it to 6 and then it went back to 10 and then it went to 6. It was just never you kept like teasing this comeback that they just never actually went on that run. So you kind of come out of a game like that. Sometimes you call a game and you're like, oh man, I just wish the game was a little bit better. That could have helped me be a better broadcaster. But I came out of that game really feeling down about how I managed the whole production, not what was necessarily coming through the television that night, but just sort of knowing me helping elevate the ideas that the production and the truck were having. And a lot of that had to do with my hearing and just sort of needing to relearn how to process information on the fly. So that was, that is an obstacle that was hard to overcome years ago and just kind of made its way into a point where I was like, okay, I've got this. And then this new layer of challenges kind of came upon me with the NBC stuff. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have to relearn some more things here and how to really execute with what is needed at this level.
Right. And in your situation, a lot of people would have gave up, but you just kept going. What made you not give up?
Yeah, you know, it's something where um I I credit my parents immensely that growing up I was just always reading out loud, and so you could have I could have given up at 3 years old type of thing, I mean, like that sort of thing. And my parents were committed to reading out loud every single night to correct my speech, to make sure I was hearing things the way that they needed to be heard. I had hearing aids from an incredibly young age, from first grade on. Um, and so honestly, by the time that I got to, I don't know, middle school, right, where the classes start to pick up. Elementary school is great and fun, and you might have trouble with multiplication, but by and large, everyone gets through to middle school, and before they start having like harder math classes, and you get split up into whatever, um, and so by the time I got there, I forgot that I had this thing that would be a detriment, honestly, and so I just think that giving up wasn't on the radar, not because of any particular mindset, but just because of the standard that's just how life was going to be. I was born this way, and we're just gonna do it. So yeah, it's a good question, because even talking about it, I'm still not, I still kind of bristle at the fact when I say, yeah, I'm legally disabled. It's just not, I don't identify that way, even though medically that is how it is classified.
Well, I give you a lot of props for that because I know that took so much courage.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, because and again, having friends who keep you humble are a beautiful thing. And in high school, I'd get my college acceptance letters, and it's like, oh, cool, I got into wherever, and my friends would be like, you got accepted into the disability school, and it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, and it's just, again, just constant reminders of like, this is who you are, even if you don't identify that way. Which, again, that's just such an important part of life, to get more and more comfortable with just the truth of who you are.
And when your friends reminded you of you got
Yeah.
accepted to the disabled school, you're well aware of that. Did that bother you, or you took that as just keep going?
Yeah, no, that was just I mean, that was more because we were all in the same class, and I was getting all the same grades as them, and they're going, okay, you know, they didn't allow me. I guess it's just one more example of the people, my family, my friends, just not allowing me to even consider the option that, like, okay, I'm not going to do this thing. It's like, no, you're just as capable as the rest of us, no matter what that piece of paper says. So just keep on doing it. It's like, okay, yeah, good point.
Right. And you've been doing it, and I'm sure you'll continue to keep doing it. Um, how do you mentally prepare for like a big, huge game?
Mentally prepare for a huge game. I'm someone that I want to be done with all my prep by the time I show up. And I think that's relatable in the sense that, you know, we've all taken exams in schools and whatever level we've gotten to. And when you sit down before a test and there's 5 minutes, you get the room 5 minutes before and you're reading for 5 more minutes, none of what you're studying ever shows up on the test. So for me, when I sit down courtside an hour, 90 minutes before a game, I just want to be ready to go and just have fun with my partner, with my production crew. I don't want to be thinking, oh, okay, yeah, there was this one stat that I needed to look up before. It's no, that time has passed. Just you're there, you know. And I think for me, mentally, the preparation, those last 90 minutes to an hour, the more fun I'm having with the production crew and the jokes that we're sharing over headset before we go live, and my broadcast partner, like, that's what's going to set the tone. And if we lose sight of the fact that this whole thing is entertainment and this whole thing is fun, I mean, come on, that's why we watch sports. So, yeah, that to me, the mental preparation, I want that last 90 minutes, 60 minutes to just be fun with the people that are around me, so that when the ball is tipped, or the kickoff happens, first pitch, whatever it is, that we've been having fun for an hour, so that that fun just carries over. We don't have to start having fun when the broadcast begins.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You know, covering UConn and all the stuff you cover, that's a major thing. UConn is global. Um, what makes it like special to you? Because that's got to be so special to you.
Yeah, UConn, I mean, it's home, so it's formative for my life, where I think a lot of us that went to college can appreciate the fact that from 18 to 22, you change as a person, and hopefully that means you become a better version of who you were when you first arrived on campus. And, so for me, it also culminates in the fact that back in 2011, when I was a senior, part of my college, my waning college experience was Kemba Walker leading everybody on a run, and being student radio and getting to call his step back at the Garden, and getting to pick up a handful of confetti down at Reliance Stadium in Houston when they won the national title over Butler. And so there was never a point where UConn wasn't going to be special for me. And I think seeing what they've done the last 5 years under Dan Hurley and 8 years total since he arrived it's been awesome. And that completely overlooks the fact that Gino Auriemma just keeps plugging away into, I guess he'll go till he's 100, but he just keeps plugging away with the women's basketball program. And baseball, getting to cover multiple super regionals, one out in Stanford, one at Florida State. Softball's made back-to-back NCAA tournaments. Hockey, the men's hockey team has made the NCAA tournament back-to-back years. Women's hockey is a top 10 team. It's just, it goes on and on. And so, I think a lot of people from the, football back-to-back 9-win seasons, the Fenway Bowl. So it's everywhere you look, the programs are incredible. And I think as a broadcaster, there is so much excitement and pride to see, a Braylon Mullins do what he did against Duke, and the whole world stopped in that moment. But again, also getting a chance to call UConn versus Harvard field hockey in the Elite Eight, and just sort of appreciating what a big moment that was for those athletes too. Field hockey team, which features a lot of players from the Netherlands, and they're competing 4,000 miles from home just to compete. And yeah, that all, again, it's just, there's so much within a college athletic department, and it starts from David Benedict and it trickles on down, and he's the athletic director and has been incredible in his time here. And so, yeah, it just makes every event really special. And I know that's cliche, but these athletes, in last year, women's soccer, it's just men's soccer, women's side, it just keeps on going and going. Then when we talk UConn athletics, everyone thinks basketball first, and yet it goes so much deeper than that.
Right. What's one memory that you're always going to remember broadcasting for UConn Huskies, and what did it teach you that you use on your daily life? Like, I learned this, and I'm going to just live by this information.
So, I mentioned back when I was a student, Kemba's step back jumper at the Garden, just absolutely incredible. I think to the last 8+ years now that I've been involved with the program, I really think to how bad UConn football was before Jim Mora arrived. They were really bad. Historically bad. One season gave up over 50 points a game, gave up over 600 yards a game. To be able to hand the baton off to Jim Mora, who then did what he did and get back-to-back 9-win seasons, it's remarkable. And it was, as that first year under Jim Mora was happening, and the team was 5-5 heading into the second to last game of the season. I don't think they had won 5 games the previous 3 or 4 years combined. And so they were 5-5 and 1 win away from bowl eligibility, and it was against a top 25 team in Liberty. And UConn won that game. Fans rushed the field. And honestly, what I remember most was the offense. There were a couple of offensive linemen in this scrum of people, and they're 300 plus pounds, and all they're doing is trying to find their parents. They know their parents have been on the field, and it just reminds you again of like these athletes and what is most important to them. And I don't think any of the guys that I'm thinking of got drafted, went on to the NFL. They had a couple guys over the years that did, but I'm just thinking to the guys that were able to accomplish this thing and turn around what was a moribund program and get this result against a top 25 team, which they needed because the next week they dropped it at Army, so they wouldn't have gotten in if they hadn't upset Liberty the week before. So, and that sent them on a trip down to Myrtle Beach for the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and it was just the start of this whole new era of UConn football that they're experiencing right now. And so that is a moment, seeing those athletes, those offensive linemen who look like 40-year-old men, but at their core, they're 20-year-old boys that were looking to celebrate with their parents and people that had been close to them and helped support them on that journey.
Good one. I got a couple more.
Yeah.
What leadership qualities have been most important throughout your career?
Yeah, I think that positivity and understanding what is happening in the production room. When I started to pick up games in the Northeast at Brown and Holy Cross and Northeastern, I knew that I just wanted to be around these live sports events. So what I ended up doing was I worked camera a lot at these games, on games where I wasn't broadcasting. It's all right, I'm not on the schedule to call the game, but I'd still love to be around. And so understanding all the roles that go into a broadcast is really important. And I think it's evident when I work with analysts or fellow play-by-play people who haven't put in the work to understand what people's jobs are. And so I think that positivity and giving people grace is super important, because just as I am likely to, stumble over a name or whatever it might be, a young replay operator might start the replay too soon and we missed the part that we wanted to see. And so it's just, okay, that's live television. We move on. And so I think just sort of understanding all of those elements is really, it's important. Just to be that leader, to be understanding, and to just let that slide off your back because it's live TV.
That's a good one. Is there any athlete, coach, or mentor who has had a lasting impact on your career?
There is, and so I'd mentioned his name earlier, and he hates when I mention his name, but Jason Benetti has been an incredible mentor of mine. He's now the voice of Sunday Night Baseball. He was incredibly hard and challenging as a mentor when I was in minor league baseball. Made me a better person, that's for sure, and made me be able to handle, the schedule that we talked about, and just sort of say, yeah, you just say yes, you move on, you keep doing things, and everything gets done, but you've got to be organized, you've got to be professional. So as much as he's helped me on air, there was a lot that he imparted on me that really helped away from the microphone too.
That's good. That's like a plus off air and off air.
Yeah. No, held me incredibly high standard. Absolutely. If you said you're going to call him at 1:00 and it's 1:01, he'd be texting you saying, you said 1:00. It's like, okay, 1:00 means 1:00. Just, yeah, that's those sort of things that hold you to account, no doubt.
And that's important too, that he showed you that time. If you say you're going to call 1, make sure you call that 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, when I got a phone call, even this, I had my calendar, I had an alarm at 15 minutes before, 5 minutes before, I was ready to go, just sort of making sure that you're in position when you say you're going to be in position to do something.
Very important. That's key.
Yeah.
I got 2 more. This is a good episode. What do you hope that your fans take away every time they hear one of your broadcasts?
Uh, I hope they learn a new word. I love vocabulary, and I don't want to I think there are points where broadcasters force stuff in, um, but I just hope that I use a word somewhere in a broadcast over 2 hours where somebody just goes, "Oh, don't normally hear that in a sports broad," and it's not like an SAT word, but it's just a very specific use of language. So I hope there's that, and then I hope it make you laugh once. And that to me, again, this is supposed to be fun, and that's new, navigating what having fun means on a local broadcast for, if you're the voice of a Major League Baseball team and your fans hear you every night and you get to build that rapport with them and they know the goofy sense of humor versus having it as someone who drops in once a week on NBC Peacock. There's different levels to it. So me learning that, figuring out how to make people smile, laugh in a broadcast, that's a new challenge when we talk about adding in national TV, because that's still something I think that makes me on air, is just finding those one-off moments where we can have fun, joke about something that's maybe not pertinent to the game, but then get right back to it and not let it, even if it's a 40-point blowout win for UConn women's basketball in the Big East tournament, just still call the game, respect the athletes, but find those moments to just have some fun with it.
Good. And were you one of the ones if somebody throws a trash air ball, do you call it out?
Yeah, because I think that there's, you know, I think there's just clever ways of doing it where, like Jones for three, not what he intended, right? And just sort of like, not like blowing up the athlete, but just sort of say, yeah, what if I'm at home and there's a trash air ball that's on the screen in front of me, like, yeah, you gotta talk about that. Don't perseverate on it, but just like take a little wink and a nod and move on. That the athlete, yeah, they're probably, or maybe hopefully you get a cut reaction to the athlete laughing or rolling that, like something. Your producer is going to give you something there. And so yeah, those moments, absolutely, you got to find some time to lean into them.
Yeah, because I see some harsh ones, like somebody throw an air ball, they end them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll fall a little short of that. Again, I think wry humor is maybe a little bit more where I try to execute.
Good, good. Last one. Finally, what's next for Adam, and what legacy do you hope to leave in sports broadcasting? Because you're definitely going. You're a legend. You know.
Yeah. I think um, what's next, and I'll say this from a totally practical, incremental approach. Um, the bulk of my work last year at NBC Peacock was women's basketball. I would love to get involved in some men's games as well, and just sort of have that energy as part of it too. So this will be year 2 at NBC Peacock. Find out in a couple months what the schedule looks like, and so fingers crossed that could be what is next in terms of adding to my portfolio, my repertoire. If it doesn't happen, there are tons of guys at NBC. I mean, when you think of um, Will Fleming being added for some baseball coverage, Jason Benetti being added for baseball coverage. Those are guys that are incredible basketball broadcasters as well to go along with the John Fanta. So, I mean, the stable is only getting deeper at NBC, which is amazing. It's an incredible place to be. And so if I'm afforded the opportunity to do some men's hoops this year, that would be incredible. Long term, you know, I, I guess what is like the ultimate bucket list? I'm not a Super Bowl or bust guy, but man, if I get to call a March Madness game somewhere along the line, that would be pretty darn cool. So that for me is, even with, I don't know, we might be at 128 teams in a couple years, so maybe everybody will be calling basketball games for the NCAA tournament by then. So it's, I think the legacy part is important to me in the work we're doing for the Black Play-by-Play Fund. Really is, and we've got some people that are in the industry that are have already made their moves, and Jason Ross Jr., somebody at ESPN who has been, he was one of the original scholarship recipients for us, and he's doing everything he's doing with no help from us. But I'm glad that we were able to connect with him early on in his journey, because he is just incredibly talented. Yeah, and just having more stories like that, because on the play-by-play side, it's super important to have that range of voices, and backgrounds and experiences. And when I was starting up the Black Play-by-Play Fund and talking to people that knew more about racial dynamics, certainly, than a white guy who grew up in Eastern Massachusetts, in an affluent white town, that you know the meaningfulness of a Stuart Scott, when and obviously he's impactful for black, white, everybody who watched Sports Center in that era. But I think as a white person watching Stuart Scott in that era, didn't realize I was having fun watching him, not realizing that the cultural references he was making weren't for me, in much the way that the Seinfeld and Friends references might not have been for a black audience. And so it is so important to have those voices that are connecting, whether it's an Eric Collins, whether it's a Gus Johnson, Dave Sims, all these people that are able to connect energy and culture on a level that I couldn't. Others in my seat could not. And so that's the legacy that's so important, because the sports fan is served only when there are people that are able to speak directly to them. And it's a wide spectrum of sports fan. And so I'm glad women are getting the opportunity to do play-by-play. That's a more accepted thing now in terms of hearing female voices leading coverage. It's awesome. And I think that there are a lot of passionate black voices that have fallen into other roles within sports media, and play-by-play is just one that we're excited to, with this organization, to keep inspiring people to say, hey, this could be in your toolkit too, and to not give up on play-by-play just because it's freelance and doesn't offer salary, benefits, all that stuff right out of the gates. You got to grind a little bit, but it's pretty darn fun once you stick it out and make it work.
Good one. Well, this was an amazing episode. I appreciate you for coming on the podcast. Maybe we could do an in-person one soon.
Absolutely. I'm up here in the Northeast. I'm on campus quite a bit. So, we'll connect soon enough. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Adam. Take care. Talk soon.
You bet.
Take care.